I love the song that we ended the service with. This
too.
idea of, I believe you can. God, I believe you're able to do this. I'm asking you to do it. But you know what? Even if you don't, I'm still here. I'm not bailing on you. I'm not turning around. I'm not walking the other way. That's a kind of faith that I would hope all of us want to get to. And the thought I had was, what does that look like? Have you seen any real examples of that in people that you know, or just in instances that you've seen can we bring that into our real world?
Well, only because you've talked about it on our podcast that I would bring it up. But I think you and your wife in the death of your child certainly are that. I watched that firsthand. The song that you mentioned, we know, you and I know.
Yeah.
And one of the first times I heard that, I had heard it before, but not as much, was at another death of a child of a friend of ours that got sung by a friend of ours. And when you see people go through those kind of things, and a lot of people, the examples they give of faith, and again, don't have to get too much of the next series. Often when people think about faith, they talk about faith and, I had this terrible news, but I put my faith in God, and the next day everything got reversed.
Yeah. Right.
Well, that's great, but that doesn't inspire me near as much as when, about the worst thing that most of us can imagine that have been parents is to have to bury a child. In fact, I just heard another preacher that we all know just make the mention. I never thought about it, that we have a word for somebody that a husband that loses his wife is called a widower, and a woman that loses her husband is called a widow. We have no word for a parent that loses their child because it's just not, it's unthinkable to us that should happen. We don't even have a word for it. And most of us just dread it. And when you see somebody go through something just that all of us dread, and they continue, they couldn't stop it. If they could have stopped it, they would have stopped it if they'd have done anything. And they continue to say, I know God could have do this, but it didn't happen, and yet I still trust him. Not because of what I can make happen, but because of who he is and what he's already done.
And you've already mentioned this next series that we're starting this coming week. We're going to get into that, this nature of faith and what it really is, and what it really isn't. And we've seen enough. And I think of an example is a good friend of mine just this past year watched his wife deteriorate and lose her battle to cancer. And this guy that I know the whole time prayed, asked for healing, everything that you would do as a believer going through something like that. And yet he buries his wife. And then after that, this past Easter, the church that he goes to, they interviewed him. And the guy sits there and says, God's still God. I'm still serving him. He didn't choose to heal my wife the way that I wanted, but he healed her in another way. And I've got the hope that I'm going to see her. And so even if he didn't heal my wife the way I'd asked him to, I'm not going anywhere. Right. And I look at that guy and I'm thinking, that's what I want. That's the kind of faith I want to have. But to then come back and say, well, faith is just believe hard enough and just say the right words or pray the right prayers, and then you'll get what you pray for. I'm just like, that can't be it.
Well, and what I have noticed, and I used this example before for people, and I think most of us are honest, know it's true. We have all had instances where there was something in the moment that was about to happen bad, and we knew something bad was going to happen. The example I've used, because it is out of my past, of you get stopped by the police and you have a substance in your car that will send you to prison. And as he's walking up, you pray, oh God, do not. If you will not let him ask to look in the car, if that would not happen, I will serve you the rest of my life. And then the dude says, hey, you had a tail light out, and I just want to check your stuff. And he walks away, and you get a warning. No one suddenly becomes a missionary out of that, even if you promised to do it.
No.
Right.
You got exactly what you said. You said you had faith. And the way you tell that story is, dude, he didn't even look under the thing. I got so lucky.
I can do it again.
Exactly. Nobody's faith grows out of those kind of things.
No, it doesn't.
We don't even see it that way, but when we talk to people about it, we talk about it as some kind of power I have. It's not a power I have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where we're going. If you're wondering, in the next couple of weeks, we're going to talk about the nature of faith, what it is, what it isn't, and what that means for us. And I know when you first hear that, it's like, well, is that even good news? Yeah, there's a lot of good news in that, and I think you'll see that when we
I think
get
if you
to our
can
next
ever
series.
get it straight, if we can ever all get it straight in our head, the amount of good it does in my life to realize my faith is not dependent on me. It is not dependent on me.
It's a very freeing thing.
It's
Yeah,
exceptionally.
there's a
freeing.
lot of freedom in the fact that I'm the child in this situation, and that I have a father who's in control. I hear lots of people talk about that all the time. Of, because I end up working with young people a lot, and I end up hearing, people who are older say lots of dumb things to people who are younger. But one thing that I hear all the time that I think is like this is the best days of your life, and when you're 15 and you hate your body and you hate the way everyone talks
And
about
everybody
you.
you want to be your friend makes fun of you.
Yeah, and everyone hates you, and you're like, this is the best days of your life, live it up. And I'm like, one, all the things you regret about your life happened when you were 15 and 16. And,
We can all attest to that.
Yeah, that's
it's like, those
exactly
are the
right.
things you hate. Stop saying that to people. It does get better. Like, everything is better after
Yes.
high school. But one of the things, I've noticed people talk about all the time when they're saying these are the best years of your life, and that is there's this idea for lots of people, they want to go back to childhood, and they're like, oh, there's something so great about that. And one of the things, and I think there maybe is a truth in this that maybe that people like, is the freedom of it wasn't all on my shoulders. That there is part of being an adult, there's this feeling of everything's on my shoulders. My life, everything, all the responsibility falls on my shoulders. And I do think one of the beautiful things that when Jesus talks about having a childlike faith is, it is what he's inviting you into, is I just need you to do what I tell you. You don't need to know the end.
Yeah.
You don't need to know what to do. My kids do that every day. They come down and they go, Dad, what are we doing? I say, well, I need you to go get the laundry. What are we doing after that? And I'm like, well, we're going to eat breakfast. What are we doing after that? They want to know the whole day's plan. I'm like, just go do. You don't need to know everything. You need to know what to do right now. And there is a freedom if they accept that of, my dad knows what he's doing. He's gonna make something good come out of this. And if I can live in that, but it is scary for many of us until we get to the point of letting go of that control. Because what I'm looking for is, I'm looking for a life with a good income and, my kids getting a solid education.
And me being able to do whatever I want to do
Yeah.
with no one asking me any questions.
Yeah. I do.
That's when people talk about the good life, I want to be able to buy what I can buy, do what I want to do with no accountability to anybody, but everybody doesn't do anything that offends me.
We were talking about this the other day of, I think one of the troubles with the kind of faith that Jesus calls us to is we do have a myth, and maybe it is because a lot of the blessings in our country can also be curses if we don't look at them in that. The amount of progress we've made as people, just in society, there's a belief we can eventually come that with the right amount of science and with the right person in government and with the right amount of knowledge in this, humans by themselves, I call it the Star Trek belief, which is we'll get to a place where there's no world hunger, there's no more wars, and yeah, exactly. There's never going to be anything. And always key to people, I love Star Trek. If you know, the key thing in Star Trek is we get rid of religion because humans themselves
Figure it all out.
overcome the problem. Well, we know that's a myth. Things in our world have gotten better in some degrees. Crime rates go down, right? All this kind of stuff. But anxiety levels have gone up.
Yeah.
Right? Depression levels. There are these things that do go up. The one solution's not going to fix it all. And we do come to believe this myth that I could live a life pain-free. And so if I could, I should. And that my life should, because what we were talking about this was a little while back, we were working on some stuff at my house, and we had these boards out, and we had just taken some nails out of the board, and so my girls are running around on the boards, and I was like, get off the boards. We don't know that all the nails are out of those boards. And I remember you talking about, man, when I was growing up, and you weren't saying this in the good old days. You weren't saying it like that, but you're just talking about that's what we did all the time.
Yeah, that is what we did all the time.
And no one ever,
Nails in our feet all the time.
We had tetanus. We had lockjaw. Nobody cared.
that's right. But I think for the majority of the world, and this is the way it is, when you kind of just accept, because it's like this when we go to Haiti, the things that they don't even think about in Haiti that would be, that are almost disturbing to us when we go, oh my God, I can't believe they let their kids do it. But when you really do have this acceptance of, life's going to have problems and that there are, and it doesn't mean that we shouldn't look, I'm not talking about not being cautious, but if you have this belief that, things are going to happen, I might get a nail in my foot and that may not be the end of the world. There is this ability for you to see pain and discomfort I can't live a life without pain and discomfort. Therefore, I shouldn't. But we do. And so when Jesus invites us to a life that goes, hey, there's pain and discomfort, we go, what? But Jesus isn't inviting us into a life with pain and discomfort. He's saying, you live in a life with pain and discomfort.
I have the answer to that.
Exactly.
I do.
Yes. And so I think that's the part that's hard for us is, that kind of faith is, the faith that's attractive to me is no pain, no discomfort. That I can pray it away.
And I told my kids this not too long ago. I said, guys, you're going to hear as you grow up, people are going to oppose your faith by using the world you live in and pain and suffering and how could a good God and all that stuff. And I said, and don't freak out when they say that to you. I said, because the truth is you live in a kingdom that has the only solution to the pain and suffering problem. And I said, Christianity, I said, as a Christian, don't you shy away from the issue of pain and suffering. I said, you lean into it. I said, because we got the solution to that. We follow the one who kicked death in the teeth. Right. We'll be just fine. Now, I get all that, and we can have those discussions of why a good God lets things happen the way he does. But I'm telling you, he provided the answer as well. That's what the whole Christian faith is about. So I don't want to get off on that. That's a whole other thing. But anyway.
I would say to people, maybe this is a thing. If you want to try to build your faith, honestly, if you want to build your faith going into this, the best thing I have known with people that have this view of faith of control is if my faith is based on not what I can make God do or what I know God will do, my faith is based on what God has done and what he can do, you need to spend time in grateful activities. You need to spend lots of time sitting in your life and daily figuring out a way to count how many things have come to you that you didn't plan to come to you, that you couldn't have controlled coming to you, that with a slight different decision, that if you're honest, you could have made either one. It wasn't some well thought out thing. You just went this way and it all went great. When you track your life that way and you begin to do a lot of grateful stuff, faith becomes God. As I say to people, I said this right after COVID-19, God has been way more faithful to me than I have ever been to him. He's been faithful every day of my life when I had my back turned on him. He's been faithful to me when I was sort of turned toward him. He's faithful to me. I have every reason to believe he will be faithful in the future, not because I know what's going to happen. It's just been the pattern of my life. Even the bad days of my life, there's been good stuff that came out of it that I couldn't have made happen.
And if you'll just stop and recognize that, you'll realize it is currently happening.
It is currently happening.
You're just not paying attention, man.
Right. So when I began to think of it in control, faith has always been based on what God has done and what he can do. He can do things I don't even ask him to do in better ways than the things I asked him to do.
Yeah, that's great.
That's a great place to end that discussion.
Yeah.
All right.